All right, let's go ahead and jump over to our next story. All right, our next story takes us to the Panama Canal and low water, which has been impacting the Panama Canal for quite a while now. I was going back through some stories and realized a few years ago we were talking about this issue back then, and now it has manifested itself into fruition. This story from Reuters on February 7th, the Panama Canal expects to maintain current transit levels through the dry season, which is really good news. Normally, you see anywhere from 32 to 36 ships head through the Panama Canal on a daily basis. We're down to 24 right now. And understand, one of the aspects of that 24 ships going through is that we've had to reduce the amount of cargo on the new Neo-Panamax ships. These are the ships that use the new lane of the Panama Canal, open since 2016. They're having to offload part of their cargo. Matter of fact, Maersk has got a program in place to bring their fully loaded Neo-Panamax ships into the Panama side of the canal, offload containers, rail them across, and meet them at the other side. That involves delays, that involves extra port handling, it involves extra cost. This is why we're seeing those freight rates begin to rise, something we'll talk about here in a minute. Going on here, what we're seeing is perhaps some good news come in. End of El Nino could bring relief for Panama Canal water crisis. Forecasting is saying that we could start to see improvements with the end of El Nino between April and June, about a 79% chance for that, followed up by a La Nina weather pattern between June and August with a 55% chance, which would mean more water. What does this mean directly for the Panama Canal, Bud? Because right now we are at extremely low water. This is the Gatun Lake water levels. Now, let me take a second here. The Panama Canal operates on fresh water. It is not a saltwater lake. I know a lot of people want to talk about oceans rising and global warming. It has nothing to do with Panama Canal. To get through the Panama Canal, you have to get up onto Gatun Lake, which means you have to go through a series of 3 locks on each side, get up onto the lake, sail across the lake, and then go down. And the way the canal was designed back in 1914 when it first opened was they dammed up and created a large freshwater lake. And that lake spills into the locks. You use the water from the lake to fill up the locks to raise vessels up. And when ships go out, you dump that water into the ocean. You don't dump it back into the lake because it will have mixed with salt water, and you can't have salt, brackish water in Gatun Lake. You'll kill the wildlife, you'll kill fishing, and more importantly, this is a lake that provides the drinking water for Panama. And as of the last Panama Canal annual report, about 50% of the water usage of Gatun Lake goes to the Panama Canal. Half of it goes to the new lane of the canal. The other half goes to the old lane of the canal. Now, when they opened the locks in 2016, the new locks, they knew they were going to increase substantially the amount of water they're using. However, there were provisions. They built a series of containment ponds to catch the water and recycle it. They'd hoped to be able to recycle 80% of that water. They're only recycling about 50% of that water. There's no reclaiming of the water going into the old locks. And so water usage has increased exponentially. There were plans to increase dams to get the water level on the lake higher. Unfortunately, Panama hasn't invested in that, and that is costing them right now. If you look at this chart, right now water levels are at 81.1 feet, but the plan here, or the expectations here, is that it's going to go down to lower than 79, below 80 feet, roughly around 78.7 feet by April. Now, if you look at historically, we're at 81.1 feet. If you look at historically in March, which is usually May, which is usually the lowest month, that's usually at 82.5 feet. So we're below where the lake normally is. And this is the dry season. We're into February right now, and we expect dry season to last through May. It's not until June that you start seeing water being put back into the lake. Now, what this means is we could potentially see some more changes in the canal. So, for example, one of the things that the canal is doing right now is allowing cruise ships to go into the canal. I had my brother go through the Panama Canal not too long ago, but he didn't go through the canal. He came in on the Atlantic side, went up on the lake, and then sailed around and then went back out. That's a huge waste of water right there. But cruise ships pay a huge toll to go in. And so Panama is weighing the environmental with the economical. And right now they're favoring the economical. And this is a decision they're going to have to make, whether or not to continue such voyages and, adjust. If we're seeing further reductions, if it starts decreasing even further, we may see the Panama Canal impose more restrictions and start changing it up. And obviously, this has a worldwide impact. One of the things we're seeing right now is container ships that are coming from Asia using that lane of the Panama Canal, the Neo-Panamax lane. Remember, bigger lane. You can bring ships through that have 15,000 containers, vice 4,500. Well, those ships are offloading on the East Coast, on the Gulf Coast, and then they're heading east, heading back to Asia by going around the world, but not through the Suez Canal. They have to go around Africa, which actually is just a few days longer on a longer voyage like that. But still, it's taking time. It's taking time and it's changing routes. And as we'll see when we talk about containers, this is having an impact on container rates around the world.